is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
Hi, this is Avianne, once again coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area in California with our show, Your Creative Force. Today is episode 3, and our theme for today is cultivating a victory mindset. But first, before we delve into all that and what that means, I want to thank you for listening to episode 1, which was my interview with Denise Thompson, CEO of Global Voice Radio, and episode 2, where we discussed what it means to really be creative. What is creativity really about? And why that all ties together into living from your creative force. If you haven't listened to episode 1 or episode 2, I hope that you will get hold of those and that you will listen to them. Podcasts of those will be made available soon if they haven't already been made available, and you will be able to have full access to those first 2 shows. As I progress in the show, I build on each previous show so that everything is coherent and everything makes sense. And so if you listen to all the shows, you will get so much juice, the good stuff, the meat. That's all in listening to each show, because everything is progressively discussed in each show. And I'm giving you lots of little truths, lots of little diamonds, lots of little treasures along the way. So that being said, let's jump into our theme for today. And thank you for listening to the first 2 shows for everyone who did that. I really appreciate that. So we're going to jump into a victory mindset and cultivating a victory mindset. Why is that really important? Well, I can explain it to you like this. Having a victory mindset is like a shield. If you have a victory mindset, it's really going to protect you, especially when times get tough. The Spartans used to place a huge importance on carrying a shield. And if a soldier were to leave a shield on the battlefield or were to not remember to bring their shield to battle, they were actually severely punished in Spartan culture. The reason being that the shield was not just viewed as a way to protect the individual, but to guard the entire army. The shield was viewed as an extension of the entire fighting force of the Spartan army. They placed a very big importance on that. And to me, having and cultivating a victory mindset is about that. It is about protecting and having that protection around your heart and around your mind in times when you really need that. Why do I say that? Because we all will go through times in our journey, not just in your journey to discover and cultivate and live from and enjoy and absolutely just shine in your creative force, but in every aspect of your life. If you don't have a victory mindset, if you don't cultivate that deliberately on purpose, you will very soon find yourself discouraged. You will find yourself being easily prone to things like depression, being easily prone to get sidetracked. You will find yourself, remember in our second show, we were speaking about not getting sucked into things that will distract you from your journey, being careful who you surround yourself with. I think we touched on that in our second show. So this kind of ties into that as well. If you cultivate a victory mindset, it will give you very clear discernment. It will help you to have clarity when you feel tired, when you feel emotional. Everybody goes through that. It is normal in business or in your personal life to feel moody or discouraged or just tired sometimes. Sometimes just feeling confused, almost like you don't know, you're not sure which choices to make. You're not sure what you should say no to and what you should say yes to. And if you cultivate a victory mindset, it will help you to more easily, and more readily answer difficult questions for you. It will help you to take a step back and have some objectivity about what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what you're experiencing. I want to quickly use an example here. Recently, I observed a situation. Let's call the two ladies involved Kim and Jane, just for the sake of the story. Kim and Jane have worked together for many years. They both had separate businesses, and they also formed a partnership in another business. Kim and Jane had a very bad fallout. They disagreed about the business. They had conflicting ideologies, conflicting goals for the business, and they had a serious fallout. The fallout was of such a nature that Kim decided to completely leave the business and basically ended the partnership and walked out on Jane. Jane responded very aggressively. Jane proceeded to pit clients against Kim. She proceeded to hurt Kim's family. She proceeded to bully Kim online. She proceeded with behavior and reactions that were completely out of line and completely childish. Now, in Jane's defense, we do not know what the real reason is that Kim ended up walking out. We cannot know. Each of them has their own version of what really happened. So to really know what happened would be hard for anyone from the outside, right? So we don't really know the details of the situation. But what we are observing is Jane viciously attacking Kim and making it look and making it appear online that Kim is a horrible person and a completely heartless person, and actually divulging details about the situation that is not reflecting the full situation and definitely are not a reflection of Kim's side of the story. On the other hand, we're observing Kim reacting with great patience, great self-control, remaining professional, remaining kind to clients, not attempting at all to pit clients against Jane, not at all attempting to derail or destroy or throw Jane off balance at all. Can you see the difference? Jane reacted very aggressively, very wounded, very erratically, very unpredictably. Kim reacted very calm and in control of the situation. And that right there is tied to cultivating a victory mindset. And cultivating a victory mindset has a lot to do with dealing with things in our lives as they come up. Not pushing them away, not pretending they don't exist, not wallowing in them endlessly, but also dealing with them. Just, dealing with things. Not having just your first response, which is usually to flee away from it or to try and squash it down. Not just having that response, but also going one step further and then dealing with it, addressing it. Okay? So I want you to keep that example in mind because it's going to unfold and make a lot of sense for you as we go on with this show today. Cultivating a victory mindset has a lot to do with how you respond in situations that may be unforeseen and very difficult for you to deal with. Okay? And remembering the situation I just described between Kim and Jane, that will serve you well to remember that example, because this is all going to make sense to you after today's show. Okay, so here's a really cool thing that I came across. This is me. I don't know if anyone else came up with this before. I don't know if I'm the first person to ever come up with this, but I call it shout. It is the doable steps of cultivating a victory mindset. Okay, I'm going to quickly go over these and then I'm going to delve very deeply into each of these. The first is S, survive, H, heal, O, outgrow, U, unhook, and T, thrive. And those first letters of each of those words spell the word shout. So remember the word shout in cultivating a victory mindset. Survive, heal, outgrow, unhook, and thrive. I will repeat that in case anyone is writing this down. Shout stands for survive, heal, outgrow, unhook, and thrive. Now we're going to get deep into the juice, right? Remember, I promised you in the beginning of our show that we're going to go really deep into this concept of cultivating a victory mindset. Okay, so let's start with survive. Whatever happens to you, your first job in getting through it is to survive it. Any soldier in battle will tell you that the main goal is to survive the battle so that you could keep fighting the battle. If you do foolish things and you don't survive your situation, then these other steps are not even possible. And I am not saying this in ignorance. I'm not saying this in judgment. So I want you to really understand my heart behind telling you this. You have to, first of all, survive your situation. And surviving your situation means not giving up no matter what. I'm going to say it again. Surviving your situation means not giving up no matter what. And I'm talking from personal experience. As you get to know more about me and my story, you will get to know that I had a very difficult childhood. It was during apartheid in South Africa. I lived in a very oppressive, very mind-controlled, very limiting environment. The community in which I grew up was pretty mentally abusive, pretty restrictive, pretty much into the whole church and government controlling everything kind of mindset. And it was not a very happy or a very productive place to grow up in. And from a very early age, I used to tell myself, whatever you do, whatever happens, you need to survive this. Whatever comes your way, whatever they do, whatever they say, you have to survive this. You're not going to be a kid forever, and if you can survive this, there will come a time when this will no longer have to be your reality. And you know what? I was right. And the great part is I did survive it. The sad part is I kind of was stuck in it, surviving it. After I survived it and after I became an adult, I was still stuck in that. And that's why I'm sharing this with you today. I wish I knew what I know today back then when I was younger, because if I could tell this, if I could share this message of truly cultivating a victory mindset with my younger self, I know that I might have come out of all that much sooner. But you know what? Here's a little secret side note. I'm not upset with myself. I'm not judging myself. I'm not hard on myself. I know that I had my journey for a reason. I know that every part of my journey, every time frame during which I experienced my journey, and all the little bits and pieces of timing and events that happened to me in my journey, they have occurred so that I could sit here right now and tell you how to cultivate a victory mindset. Your first job is to survive. Tragedy can strike you. And we cannot, I'm just going to give it to you as real and as raw as I can. Tragedy can strike anyone at any time. If you can survive it, you have to survive it. Sometimes you cannot survive it. There are things we cannot control. We cannot control war. We cannot control illness. If we pass away, we cannot control that. We don't have power over life and death. So there are certain things we cannot survive. We cannot survive time because in the end, we all have to leave this planet, right? Nobody lives forever. So there's a certain, let's call it like a broader, bigger picture sense that we cannot survive everything forever. But for the most part, situations that happen to us, we can survive them. I remember when I went through my divorce, it was quite interesting how people reacted to me. Everybody wanted to either fix my marriage, sort me out, sort out my ex, give me advice. And you know what? The place I was in, the space in my mind, in my soul that I was in at that moment required from me tremendous survival instinct. Because when you go through a divorce, if you've ever been through a divorce, you will know this to be true to some greater or lesser degree. Everything in your life, what does divorce feel like? It feels like every single aspect of your life completely gets thrown into a tumble dryer. That's really what it feels like. Your relationships, your family, your finances, your living arrangements, your neighborhood, your community, everything is ripped to shreds. It's like a bomb goes off in the center of your life, especially if the divorce, like my divorce, was completely out of the blue. It was not something I expected. I had no time to prepare myself for it. It happened very, very fast, and I was caught completely off guard by it. And my only instinct that kicked in was that old survival instinct that I cultivated when I was a kid. And that survival instinct whispered to me, and see, I believe even the source of cultivating a victory mindset and even the source of me surviving that was my creative force whispering to me inside my heart, whatever happens, you have to survive it. And I had a big incentive to survive the situation because I had a 2-year-old at the time. My daughter was 2 when this disaster struck my life. So, the first step of survival means you keep putting one foot in front of the other. You cannot lay down and die. Like the song says. What is that song? It says, you thought I'd crumble, you thought I'd lay down and die. I will survive, right? That's the theme of this part of our show, and that's also the name of that song, I Will Survive. It's kind of like that song. You cannot crumble, you cannot lay down and die. You cannot let your life end because of the crisis. Maybe for a week or a month or a year or however long you need. Maybe you need to take a little time out, take a little breather, go a little easy on yourself. But the only advice that I would ever give a person that is in a disastrous situation is do not allow it to completely end your life as you know it. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. I kept teaching my art classes. I kept spending time with my daughter. The friends that I felt I could trust, I kept building relationship with them. I had to scale back a lot of stuff so that I could focus. I had to spend a lot more time with my daughter than I did before this whole situation happened because she really needed me. She was only 2. She was really confused by the situation, and I really had to focus on getting her through this. I had to also focus getting myself through this. So I went for counseling. I read up. I sorted out my finances. I got help. I asked one of my friends to help me sort out my finances, and I had help finding a better living arrangement. I had a lot of things that I had to find help for, and I did. And I managed to drag myself and my daughter through that, just surviving, making sure that the beds are made, the laundry is done. I keep teaching my art classes so that I have an income and that I am there for my daughter, that I give her a lot of attention, a lot of love, that I take her to the park, and I keep her life intact as much as I could. I tried my very, very best to survive the situation with a cool head. Okay? So that's our first step, is to survive. Remember, shout, survive, heal, outgrow, unhook, and thrive. So just surviving, doing what you need to survive. Now, there's, of course, a lot more we can unpack as far as survival goes. And I would advise people, I am careful to give people advice, very specific advice about their lives, about their specific situation, because I'm not in their shoes. I don't know their history. I don't know their family relationships. I have no idea where they stand or where they're at in their life if I look at their life as a whole, right? So I'm very careful of giving very specific advice. But the two things I can tell people is you have to not allow the situation to destroy you, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is do what you need to survive, but try and do it in such a way that you do not destroy your future. Because if you do things to survive that will harm other people, like a lot of women that I have come across, without realizing it in their struggle to survive a divorce, they sometimes, not meaning to, but they do destroy their children because they try so hard to punish the other party for what happened, or they're trying so hard just to get through it that they say things and do things in front of or to their children that they have no idea they're hurting their children. So you have to survive, but you have to also do it with a cool head. Don't become destructive. Don't become bitter as you're trying to survive. Stick to the basics. Like I say, keep things practical, keep things very real. Don't go off on all kinds of strange tangents to try and smear people or try and go crazy, right? When you are hit with a crisis, an unexpected crisis, just hunker down, survive it, and do it with as much dignity, as much character, and as much of a cool head as you possibly can. And that's all I would say on that topic. Now, this ends the first portion of our show. When we come back, we will talk about heal, which is the second part of what we need to do in our journey of cultivating a victory mindset. And I will be right back.
The broadcast that sets you on a path of inspiration and fire. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
And we are back with the second part of our show. Remember, we are talking about cultivating a victory mindset, and we are talking about the doable steps, which can be summed up with the word shout. Survive, heal, outgrow, unhook, and thrive. And we are at the word heal. What does healing look like? What does healing mean? Now, first of all, before we go deeper into the heal aspect of everything, I have to just tell you this quickly as a side note. I am not telling you all this because I am perfect. I am not telling you all this because I have my life perfectly figured out and everything in my life is going hunky-dory and I never have an issue or a problem and I live this every day perfectly and so I have no issues or problems or struggles any longer. That's not why I'm sharing this with you. And I often find that people who try and be encouraging, motivational coaches or people, they sometimes portray this image as if they have it all together and they know it all. And I'm telling you right now, if anyone tells you that, if anyone gives you that idea that their lives are so perfect and together and that the things they teach or the things they're passionate about, that they have all those things completely figured out and completely down all the time, 24/7, they're not telling you the truth because nobody does. I still get upset. I'm a very sensitive person. And these things, the reason I am sharing these treasures, these secrets that I am finding in my own life to be really helpful to me, the only reason I'm sharing this with you is because I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. I'm a very sensitive person. person. And these things are very difficult for me to achieve because my first reaction, my natural reaction when things go wrong is I become very anxious. I am an overthinker. So I tend to think of everything that can go wrong long before anything is even going wrong. I tend to think out things to the point where I have analysis paralysis. So I have my own struggles and battles to face with this. I am definitely not perfect. And the reason I want to disclose that and really get authentic with you about that is because I want you to not feel pressured. It's not like, and it doesn't work like steps like do step 1 to step 5 and you're going to have a perfect life. It doesn't work like that. There are different times in my life where I have to apply 1 or 5 or 3 or 2 of these things all together. And remember what we were talking about in our second show? Life is kind of organic. Life is not this linear thing. Things are organic. Processes and solutions and issues that we work through in our lives are organic things, and they are different for each person. They're very, very different. So all I'm trying to do is share with you things I have found to be helpful to myself. That does not mean, and I really want to make this clear, this does not mean that I am perfect. This does not mean that I always perfectly follow these rules. Being a very sensitive, highly emotional person, I have real difficulty. I am what they call a hyper empath who can easily read people, feel their emotions, sense their intentions. This is very hard. Sometimes it makes me on purpose withdraw from people. Sometimes it makes me on purpose act in the opposite way just so that I cannot feel or experience or deal with the full intensity of my emotions all the time because it's very exhausting to me. So people sometimes think I'm a little harsh or they think I am someone who kind of is a loner, but you see, they don't know my reality either. They don't know the details about my life. They don't know that in reality, the truth, the God honest, stripped of all pretension truth is that it's just sometimes very hard for me to be around people because of everything I'm thinking, seeing, sensing, and feeling. It's way too overwhelming for me. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm just trying to get through the situation and protect myself. So I just want to throw that in here quickly because if you feel pressured, if you feel like, well, my life is such a disaster, I better pull it together. I just want to take the pressure off for you. You're not, and this is something you need to remember. Remember, we also touched on this in our second show. You are not a perfect being, and that's okay. You do not have to be perfect. The intention of all this, the intention of my show, Your Creative Force, is not to try and give you perfect, one-size-fit-all solutions for every single situation or aspect of your life. It's just to give you some tools, some helpful things that when you come across situations, maybe they can be of some use to you, right? So I want you to not feel pressured. I want you to not feel or think that you have to be anything or anyone else than who you truly are. And I want you to have mercy on yourself, real mercy, because this is a process. Everything in life is a growth process. Everything in life takes time. Patience. You really need patience with yourself. We also touched on that. Need to have patience with yourself and with your situation and working towards really connecting deeply and authentically with your creative force. That's what it's all about. So I just want to make that clear because I don't want you guys to have any misunderstandings or to think I think I'm this superhuman who has everything together. I can promise you I'm going to give it to you real and raw. That's why even earlier in part 1 of our show, I said to you, none of us can survive time. There are certain things that no matter how hard you try, you will not survive time because we all have a limited amount of time, right? But that's also why it's so important that while we are here, we go deep and we go hard after the things that really matter and we don't waste our lives with self-destructive or self-hindering behaviors and thoughts and feelings, right? So that's what this is about, just trying to grow, trying to really make the best of who we are and really having practical, easily doable steps to, at least to some degree, as much as we can, achieve the best life that we can possibly live. That's what this is all about. So that all being said, I hope you guys are with me. That all being said, heal is the next one. And heal is a very deep topic for me. It's a very deep, very painful topic for me to even delve into, because in many ways, as I said, I'm just going to be real with you guys. In many ways, I am still, and I believe I will for the rest of my time on this planet, go through healing. For the first 20 to 30 years of my life, I went through so much grief, so much pain, so much abuse, so much anger, so much shame, that it's definitely going to take me a long time to unhook, heal, all these things we're talking about today, outgrow and thrive. It's going to take me a long time to unpack each of these things to its full degree in my life. And remember what we said in show 2, it's not a destination either, right? It's not like you're going to survive and heal and outgrow and unhook and thrive, and then you're going to arrive at this magical utopia where your life is just going to be pure bliss. It doesn't work like that. Life, if you've lived a while and if you've lived a little and if you are an adult, you will know that those are kind of unrealistic expectations. Life just doesn't work that way. And you know what? It's okay that life doesn't work that way. You can still have a fantastic, authentic, real, deep, meaningful, creative life, really being yourself, really finding out who you are, and really making a huge impact on the sphere around you, in business, in family, in any aspect of your life, right? That's what our show is all about. It's about growing and discovering and being who we truly are. So, cultivating a victory mindset as it pertains to healing. Healing is a hard one for me because I have been going through a healing process for many years now. I would say the first time I tried to address things in my life by healing through them was in my early 20s. I was looking for a lot of answers. I was searching. I ended up in a lot of different spiritual environments. I ended up in a lot of interesting social environments because I was really after overcoming certain things, and I didn't know completely about healing from my wounds at the time, but I now know that I was actually going deep after healing. I couldn't find it where I was at. I was surrounded by a lot of people who were wounded in their own right and who were just trying to survive their own situations. And at the time, I was still kind of in survival mode also. So it wasn't until my early 30s, my mid-30s, that I really started allowing a healing process. Before that, I went and saw counselors now and then. I even once touched bases with a guy I was friends with who was a psychiatrist, and I went to see him twice. And then when I was a little older, in my mid-20s, I knew a lady who was also a psychiatrist, and she was really well known as one of the best. So I went to her once, and she told me at the time that she believes when I'm ready, I will find my healing. And I didn't quite understand what she meant at the time, but she was right. I wasn't ready. I was still stuck in a survival mindset. I was just trying to get through the day. I had so many defenses up. I had so much anger, so much unresolved pain, and I wasn't ready to let my guard down. And then when I was in my early 30s, I met this man. I'm not going to name him. I don't know if he would appreciate it if I named him on air, so I'm not going to do that. But I just kind of stumbled upon him. He was in one of my social circles, and I started talking to him, and he was actually involved in what I believe is called inner healing ministry. It's hard to define exactly what he does. It's got a spiritual component to it. But it's really a deep way of connecting to your wounds and healing from your wounds. And I was a very tough customer, though. I didn't open up easily. I didn't trust easily. At the time, I was also in the early phases of my marriage falling apart, which at the time, I was so trying to survive that I didn't even realize my marriage was falling apart. I knew I had issues with my ex-husband, but I didn't know how bad he really experienced it until, like I said, the divorce hit me out of left field and I was completely unprepared for it. Anyway, this man walked with me through all that prior to my divorce, during my divorce. And during that time, I also met my birth parents, which was a very significant experience in my life. And during the same time of going through my divorce and just prior to my divorce, I had to face a lot of my pain. I had to face a lot of my anger about my childhood and my early adulthood, because a lot of facts and a lot of things that happened that I wasn't even aware of at the time when I was a really little kid, and then up until and beyond my teenage years came to light, things I wasn't aware of. And because I was so shocked by this basically ice bucket being dumped all over my life, from getting divorced to finding out all these horrific things about my past and having all that anger and all that pain and all that rejection brought back up for me, I had to face it. Because at the time, being in survival mode, I realized if I don't face this now, if I don't allow someone to help me, I am going to self-destruct. I just knew it. I just had the sense that that was what was going to happen to me. So I very deliberately was seeking out healing, but I was going for counseling with this man and his wife. They are wonderful people, and they were very patient with me. So here's why I told you all that. You have to find a healing process, a healing safe zone that works for you. These people were like a safe zone for me. When I went to their house, they did counseling from their home. When I went there, I felt safe. They made me feel safe. They were genuine in their friendship with me. And I was in a place of desperation. I knew that I had to break through this survival to the other side of healing. And I finally found the right people in the right season, in the right situation that worked for me, that I could find healing. Healing does not look the same for every person, though. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a trained counselor. And I do not think I could do that job very well, because I would probably just end up crying with people about their problems. I wouldn't know how to really help them. But they really helped me to go after those wounds. But here's the thing. I just quickly want to give you a side note. The idea when you go through a healing process is not to just go and delve into your wounds and your pain for the sake of delving into your wounds and your pain, because there's a danger there. If you get stuck there, if you get stuck in the healing phase of delving into your past or your wounds or your problems or the roots of what's going on with you, what's making you respond in certain ways. Remember our story of Jane and Kim? Remember that story? There's a reason why Jane responded so viciously and Kim could actually keep her cool in the situation. And it probably goes back to wounds from before in their lives, right? Because it was very irrational, the whole way that Jane responded. So she's probably a very wounded person. But the idea of getting healing is not to just delve into your wounds, because you can endlessly delve into your wounds and do soul searching to the point of being emotionally paralyzed. And actually, the biggest danger of getting stuck in that exact spot in your healing process is you can develop a victim mindset, which is exactly the opposite of cultivating a victory mindset. So you have to be very careful with how you seek out healing and who you seek out healing from. If you're seeking out healing and you find that in the process you're not making breakthroughs, you're not moving forward, it's not being empowering, encouraging, truly deeply healing so that you can move on and move forward and have practical solutions and doable steps that you can climb out of some of that pain and see things in a better way and respond and react, and it does not flow through to your everyday life and have a real positive impact on your everyday life, then you have to step back and ask some questions and maybe pursue a different avenue of healing, because wallowing in your healing process to the point where you develop a victim mindset or where you blame shift everything that's going on in your life onto other people, that's not really going to help you in the long run either. Right? For me in the beginning, just the fact of expressing and talking about all these things that I've experienced in my life that I've never shared with anyone, or if I shared them, it was kind of like half-hearted, kind of on the surface. I never went really deep. Just sharing that in the beginning helped me to bring down the walls. And the reaction these people had to me, treating me like I was a person with a heart, with with a right to be free from all these things. That was a huge step, but I couldn't stay there. I had to go through the process of actually getting to the other side. I had to forgive people. I had to move on. I had to decide that I will be okay with so many things of that whole situation that I couldn't understand. A lot of things that happened that caused tremendous pain and wounding and shame in my life. A lot of those things happened before I was even born. And a lot of the people who caused those things, they passed away before I even met them. So I couldn't even confront them. I couldn't even fix any of it because things were done 30, 40 years ago before I was born or when I was a very little girl, and I had no control over it. And the people that caused all that pain and suffering, they weren't even around anymore. And then my ex, he's still my daughter's father. Whatever feelings I might have had at the time resenting him, I had to deal with those feelings because what am I going to do? My daughter's only 2. She's 7 now. But he's always going to be in my life because my daughter's always going to be in my life. And if I love my daughter and care for my daughter and want her to be a healthy, happy, thriving individual, I certainly cannot take my pain out on her. I certainly cannot treat her father like he's not even human or like I resent him. I can't do that because if I do that, I'm going to completely hurt her. Okay? Now, if you go through a divorce or a situation where your life is in danger or where there's abuse or stuff, my ex didn't abuse me. He didn't do anything horrible to me. He just shocked me with a divorce out of the blue, basically. But he wasn't a totally horrible person or anything. So I'm not saying that if your ex is highly toxic or very dangerous that you should stay connected to them. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to make that very, very clear. But if you're in situations like general type of situations where people disappoint you and people hurt you, you have to really think what you are saying and doing and how you are going about not just surviving, but going from survival mode to healing mode. See, you cannot always forever just survive situations. You have to start overcoming situations. And how you overcome situations is you first have to heal. And you have to understand that your healing has nothing to do with other people. Your healing is not about sitting there and blaming everyone else for your problems. Your healing has to do with you, with your heart, your feelings, your experiences, your pain, your shame, your whatever you may feel you cannot share with people, whatever you are afraid of, your fears, your failures. That's where the healing and the secret source really lies. So that secret source of healing is something you really need to allow to be poured over your life in whichever way, shape or form you can do it. I'm hoping that in the course of our show, I can actually interview people about healing and the process of healing, people who are more knowledgeable and more experts on the subject matter, because I'm not an expert. Like I say, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a counselor, but I'm hoping to interview people who actually can walk this road and has walked this road with people to get more insight about what we can do to go through a healing process. But for today, I just want to leave that thought with you. You have to seek out healing. You really do have to seek out healing for yourself. Or every time you're faced with a crisis, like in the example of Jane and Kim, every time Jane is faced with a crisis, she will respond in a vicious, aggressive way because she has something inside of her that is not healed. Do you understand? Healing helps you to just deal with things in a more healthy way and to have more peace on the inside, to be able to work through issues so that you can take control of how you respond to different things. That's what healing really is about, in essence, in the end. Now, there's much more to healing than that, but for the sake of our time, I'm going to just end there with healing. I want you to start giving some thought to these things. As I go through these different aspects of cultivating a victory mindset, I want you to just start letting your mind go. And you will be surprised. Your creative force inside of you, it's going to whisper to you. It's going to whisper answers and ideas and solutions to you about what we're discussing right now and throughout our show, throughout our journey. We're going to discuss these things and you're going to receive your own unique answers. You already have a lot of these answers inside of you. You just haven't tapped into them yet, which is what we are going to do on our journey, is tapping into those answers, right? That's part of what we're going to do. So, moving on, we want to start talking about outgrowing. Okay? You're always going to have your inner child, but you have to start outgrowing certain behaviors and thought patterns. After you've survived, when you're dealing with healing, you have to start outgrowing. You cannot continuously, endlessly repeat the same behaviors. Einstein said that insanity is repeating the same actions and expecting different results, right? And this kind of ties into outgrowing things. You have to grow. You have to outgrow your situation. You have to outgrow your responses. You have to even outgrow your coping mechanisms. See, tied back to healing, outgrowing your coping mechanisms is an important point, because your coping mechanisms will not forever work. It's going to get you stuck into a vicious circle where you never learn to mature in your experiences or your responses to experiences. Okay? So, outgrowing how you used to deal with things, outgrowing the kind of environment you used to find yourself in and that you used to accept, that you used to just allow to victimize you, that's very important. And we are going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and discuss more about outgrowing and move on to how to unhook and how to thrive. And we will be right back.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
And we're back. This is Avianne and your creative force, and we're coming to you with episode 3, Cultivating a Victory Mindset. I'm going to delve right in, but before I do, I just want to give you a few quick ways to connect with me. The best way to connect with this show directly is through Facebook /Avianne Creative Force. That's my URL, that's my username. And then the show is called Your Creative Force, but it's also presented through Global Voice Radio. So my Facebook page is titled Global Voice Radio, Your Creative Force by Avianne. So, Avianne is spelled Avianne. I also have 2 websites, takeartclasses.com and artbyavianne.com if you want to check out more of what I'm doing with my art-based businesses. And you can email me at takeartclasses@gmail.com. So, I just quickly wanted to say all that. Avianne is spelled Avianne. Avianne Creative Force is my URL on Facebook. Global Voice Radio, Your Creative Force by Avianne is the title of my Facebook page for our show. That all being said, I'm going to move on with outgrow. So, just to summarize, and then we're going to actually move on to unhook. Outgrow means that you basically outgrow certain aspects of your life. And this is sometimes something that can scare people. When you go through survival, you're kind of still, in many ways, caught up in your previous mindsets, caught up in your previous patterns of behavior. You kind of have to rely on your coping mechanisms for a huge part to go through the survival aspect of things, right? Then as you heal, you kind of start moving towards something better. You find out better ways. You get better tools to deal with your life. You learn to put up healthy boundaries. You learn to control your emotions better, maybe. You need to think with more clarity. You need to have all of that sorting out through your healing process, right? You're kind of busy remaking your life by actually healing your life. And then the natural outflow of that is that you normally outgrow people, situations, and contexts in your life. If you go through a significant healing process, you will know that it leaves you a little different than you were before. And if your healing process is authentic and successful for you as a person, it will leave you in a better space. But because you're not thinking and feeling exactly the same way that you used to, and through healing, you've also overcome a victim mindset, which is very important in your journey for cultivating a victor mindset, is overcoming that victim mindset. That happens during healing, because when you're surviving, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to overcome your victimhood while you're just surviving. You need to actually go through a very deliberate and deep healing process, which can take years and which at different times of your life can manifest itself in different ways. We will discuss that hopefully with a host or two in future, more in depth. But that all leads to you outgrowing it. And that's okay. You have to be okay with outgrowing, because this is where you really change. Healing brings tremendous change, and the change results in you outgrowing and unhooking from people, things, and situations. Okay? So outgrow and unhook, they are kind of two sides of the same coin. As you outgrow certain people and certain situations, you're also going to unhook from certain people and certain situations. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to cut people out of your life. Out of all the hundreds of people that were featured in my life at the time when I went through my healing process, I literally only had to completely cut out a few of them. It was not necessary for me to completely break ties with everybody, but there were a few very toxic people that I realized I had to kind of break, and so I just had to break it off. I just had to sever ties, kind of like you would when you break up with a bad boyfriend, right? You kind of have to just move on through life without them, because keeping them in your life will be so complicated, so harmful, so toxic to both of you, that it's kind of not fair to you or the other party to cling to a relationship that you've outgrown or that they have outgrown. It goes both ways, right? So don't feel like it's a horrible thing when you outgrow relationships or situations, and when you have to unhook from people. Unplug, right, from certain situations. Maybe you don't need to cut someone out of your life. Maybe what you just need to do is take a step back. Instead of seeing that very negative friend who always tries to crush your dreams, instead of seeing them twice a week for 2 hours at a time for coffee, maybe you can see them once a month for 2 hours, right? You don't have to take them out of your life, but you just need to minimize their influence, because you are now not in a space where this negativity is helpful to you anymore. The negativity, the victimhood, the self-pity, those things probably, if you've gone through a healing process, you will probably and hopefully outgrow them completely, or to a large degree at least, and you would not want to. You will find yourself that you just don't have the desire or the emotional energy anymore to hang around people who are still trapped in those mindsets, because you have to spend your energy, your time, and your newfound freedoms on people and situations that are actually going to help you and where you can actually make a positive difference. And if you're not able to, in a positive way, bring someone into a journey of their own towards their own healing and their own outgrowing and unhooking processes, then you may feel stuck in that relationship, and you may just want to take a few steps back and just reassess. Completely normal. So that's outgrowing, and then unhooking becomes the way that you just take some steps back. Maybe it means that some social circles you used to attend, some events you used to go to, some things you used to frequent, maybe you just don't go as often. Maybe you start making new friends. Maybe you start networking in a different way. Maybe there's just things you do a little bit differently because you're now in a better space, right? You've outgrown things, you've healed, so your capacity has changed. Your capacity to accommodate certain people and situations in your life, because now you can be their equal. Now you can actually bring something to the table in a healthy way. That's all a very great thing. And then because your capacity for things have expanded, you're going to unhook from things that you were part of before, and you're going to move towards bigger and better things. And that's sometimes and often actually that means that you are changing relationships too. Don't feel bad about the fact that you outgrow people. It happens. It's natural. When people outgrow you, most of the time it's not a personal thing. Most of the time they have just moved into a new season. These things work in seasons. And whenever you enter a new season in your life, it's only natural that you will outgrow people. So remember that. Then the last thing, after you outgrow and you unhook, is to thrive. And thriving is kind of the culmination of all of the above. Survival, healing, outgrowing, and unhooking lead to thrival. You cannot really thrive if you're in a victim mindset. You cannot really thrive if you're not in a healing mindset, or if you're not outgrowing things and not unhooking from unhealthy situations. You can't really thrive. So the more you go through the first four, survive, heal, outgrow, and unhook, the more you go through those parts of cultivating a victory mindset, the more you will automatically thrive. Thrival is the result of surviving, healing, outgrowing, and unhooking. And I want to leave you there with that thought today. We're going to unpack some of these things more as our shows go forward. I also want to do a show about boundaries and helping you just with some practical tools of how to set healthy boundaries. And we will unpack a lot of these as we go forward. Remember, cultivating a victory mindset has to do with the doable steps that I call SHOUT: survive, heal, outgrow, unhook, and thrive. I hope you had a wonderful time today with me, and I will see you for our next show soon. So, this is Avianne signing off from the San Francisco Bay Area in California with episode 3. Have a fantastic rest of your week.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a